بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته, and welcome to another session or episode where we're learning we're doing Quran analysis on Surah Al-Hadid, and today we'll be looking at the Nahw and Sarf from where we left off. I think we stopped at ayah number 10. We didn't finish the entire ayah, so we stopped at this point. من قبل الفتح وقاتل, and we'll start with أولئك أعظم درجة من الذين أنفقوا من بعد وقاتلوا. But before we go there, I realized that last time I made a mistake, and I would like to clarify that. So if we go back to last time's discussion, I said ميثاق is a masdar mimi. I think I made a mistake here, because a masdar mimi is a type of masdar that comes in the pattern maf'al and maf'il. So I just saw a meme and immediately my mind went to a masdar mimi. And of course that was a mistake on my part. This is actually, I'm gonna call it اسم معنى. So there's something called اسم معنى, and I'm gonna take you through that. Because I feel like in as much as we're revising, if we come across some new concepts, we can also try and learn them. And these sessions are for the purpose of understanding. So I'm just going to share a little bit of information about ism ma'na and stuff like that. And then we can proceed to where we left off. Okay, so this is ism ma'na, and it still means pledge. So for that, I'm just going to go to my notes, not here. Here. Okay. So before I even tell you about ism ma'na, I'm going to remind you of this table that we learned about. If you're a Baina student, you've seen this table long time ago when we were babies in the world of Arabic. Alhamdulillah, now we are a bit mature, a bit adults. But long time ago when we started with Baina, this is the table that we started with. Words are classified into three: an ism, harf, and fi'al. And then we looked at different classification of an ism. It's classified in terms of status, number, gender, and type. So this is what we looked at long time ago. Why am I showing you this? Because ism can be classified in different categories. This is one of the categories. This is one of the ways in which you can classify an ism, how you can categorize an ism. You can categorize an ism in terms of its functionality, whether in terms of what it's doing in the sentence, in terms of the quantity, number, in terms of the gender, in terms of the type. This is one kind of classification, right? There's other kinds of classification. Another kind of classification of an ism is in terms of if it's mufrad or murakkab, whether it's a single word or it's a composition of words. Okay, so murakkab, you'd have mudaf ilayh, you'd have jar majroor, you have different kinds of combination. Ism ishara, ism mawsul, and so on. So you have different combinations of words that are murakkab composition. That's a different kind of classification. Or you can have ism mufrad, where it's just a singular word, like mawsuf sifa. So it's a singular word. So that's another kind of looking at an ism. And we learned that as well in Baina, but it wasn't like, we were not given this initial idea of how isms are classified, right? So that's one. The one you're seeing on the screen, that's one. And then what I've just explained between mufrad and murakkab, whether it's a single word or whether it's a composition of words, whether it's words that have been joined together, like I said, mudaf ilayh. So those are two words. Jar majroor, again, two words, or it could be even a sentence after it. So that would be like a composition. So that's a different classification. Then you have a different classification in terms of the type of what it is. So you have the idea that an ism can also be classified as either mushtaq, derived, or jamid, underived. Okay, so mushtaq basically means you can get this word from a previously existing word. That's what mushtaq means. You can derive it from a previously existing word. Jamid means you cannot derive it from something that has previously existed. This is the name for it. Like there's no pre-existing word that you took this word from that. You can say, okay, this one was derived from this particular root or so and so. right? That's what jamid means, and that's what mushtaq means in just the simplest type of understanding here. We'll start with mushtaq because it's very easy and we're familiar with this before we go to jamid. So mushtaq, these are words that are derived. For example, if I say katib, اسم فاعل from كتب. كاتب is مشتق من كتب. It's derived from كتب. So it goes back to something else. So I just took كتب, put it in this container, فاعل, and generated كاتب. So it is derived. Or مكتوب, اسم مفعول. Again, I took كتب, put it into this generator of in the container of مفعول, and I got مكتوب. Or it could be اسم زمان, a time where we put in this is a ظرف زمان, and that, okay, not really. اسم زمان, let's call it by its correct name. اسم زمان and اسم مكان. Okay, so اسم زمان, it's a name for a time, right? ظهر. That's it's derived from the time of dhuhr. Like it's derived from this particular verb. Subh, again, also derived from the morning, sabaha, right? So you have these words that have been derived, and then you have a certain pattern that it can follow. So for example, we know the dharf is maf'alun, maf'ilun, masjidun, for example, right? So a place of constant worship specifically. So مفعل, مفعل. So that kind of pattern would make it mushtaq. And then you have اسم تفضيل, اسم آلة, مبالغة, صفة مشبهة. All this asma, they are derived. Yeah, they're under mushtaq. We're familiar with this. All right. So I don't want to go into details with that. Then we go into jamid. These are words that cannot be derived. And jamid, these are categorized into three kinds of words, if you will. So you have the ism mubham, ambiguous word. Mubham means ambiguous. And what are some of the examples of these words? Ism al-ishara, ism mawsul, pronouns, ism istifham. For example, if I just said that, ism al-ishara, that. I mean, it's very ambiguous. It has to be connected to something else. I have to give you more information for you to understand. So it's very ambiguous in a sense, right? So I have to give you more. So I cannot just say that and walk away, right? Or I cannot say this and walk away. I cannot say who and walk away. I cannot say just it and walk away. I cannot say like, did you and then walk away. Like, I need more. So those are ambiguous in a sense. And that's pretty straightforward. Asma'ul mubhama. And then you have asma'u al-ma'na. And this is what we're going to talk about today. And asma'ul ma'na and asma'ul that are kind of similar, right? Because this refer again to things that are not derived from something that pre-exists. The difference between ism ma'na and ism that is that ism ma'na is not tangible, is intangible. Ism that is tangible. What do I mean by that? Ism ma'na, these are things that you cannot feel with the five senses. I cannot perceive it with the five senses. I cannot touch it, I cannot smell it, I cannot see it, I cannot perceive it with the five senses. This is what we call the ism ma'na. Ism that, this is what we can perceive with the five senses. I can touch it, I can feel it, I can smell it, right? So that's kind of like the difference between the two. So for example, ism that, a rock would be ism that, because I can feel it, I can see it, I can touch it, right? The moon, I can see it, I can touch it. It's not derived from anything else that came before, but I can also perceive it with my five senses. A tree, a rock, these things that cannot be derived, but I can perceive them with my five senses. But then ism ma'na, for example, if I say ruh, spirit, or if I say intelligence, like these are things that you cannot touch, you cannot smell, you cannot see. So these are aqli. These are things that you can perceive with your aql, with your intellect, with your mind. So that's the difference between ism ma'na and ism that. Okay? So ism ma'na again is categorized into two. You have the masadir And then you have the غير مصادر. So المصادر, we are familiar with this word مصدر, مصادر. كتب يكتب كتابة, or أكل يأكل أكلا, ضرب يضرب ضربا. So this was ضربا, أكلا. These are مصادر, okay? Or Islam, jihad, تعليم, all these are مصادر, right? So this مصادر, they are not things you can touch with your, you cannot touch knowledge or education, تعليم. You cannot touch education. It's not, you cannot do it. You cannot see it. You cannot perceive it with your five senses. So that's مصادر. Then you have غير مصادر. Now the idea that these are not derived from a particular root, like ruh, spirit. You know, it's an idea that you cannot see, you cannot perceive it with your five senses, but it's not a masdar of something. Al-ukhuwa is not a masdar of something. You don't say akhawa, you akhu ukhuwa. There's nothing like that, right? You cannot, it's not a masdar of something, but it's an idea that you cannot perceive with your five senses. So those are the isma'ul ma'na. And we will see how mithaq comes in here. So mithaq, the word that we were looking at, it means a pledge. You cannot see a pledge, right? You cannot see a pledge. So it's an isim ma'na, and it's not a masdar. It's an isim ma'na that has the meaning of a maf'ul, isim maf'ul. So that's how mithaq came about. And that's kind of like just why I needed to do this short, brief sort of lesson. And of course, here we have isim that. Isim that is again categorized into two. You have isim alam. So for example, proper names or proper nouns, names of people, names of places, Aisha, Yemen, Mecca, and so on and so forth. This would be isim alam. And of course, you have then isim jins. And this is like classification of or groups of things. If I say fish, if I say the ocean, if I say people, if I say tree or trees. So this would be isim jins. Okay, and I don't want to go into details of isim jins because it has its own complications and whatnot. But this is just basically a different kind of classification of isms or asma, right? And of course, the reason why I wanted to bring this forward is because of isim ma'na and the word mithaq. So you have certain, now I know that we learned that isim maf'ul either takes the pattern maf'ul if it's from family one, and if it's from the bigger families, then it has a specific format, right? But then you have exceptions. Again, we are mature enough to know that the rules apply only 99% of the time, then you have exceptions, right? So you have exceptions that isim maf'ul, or you can have different patterns with the meaning of isim maf'ul. Mif'al is one of those patterns that can, you can have a word in the pattern of mif'al with the meaning of isim maf'ul, with the meaning of the thing that has been done to. In this case, mithaq. And we're also going to see mirath. Mirath with the meaning of inheritance, the thing that has been inherited. Again, same concept, is an isim ma'na bima'na maf'ul. It's an isim ma'na with the meaning of a maf'ul bihi. Isim maf'ul. I don't know if I complicated life for you, but just, just to mention that and just to clarify that point. And also for me, because it was something new, not necessarily new, but something that I needed clarification on. All right, we can go back to where we left off now that we have clarified that small error. So we had stopped at here. And we had done the i'rab of that. So we're going to start from ulaika. And again, if anybody wants to participate, please let me know. So ulaika, this would be our mubtada because it's اسم الإشارة. It looks like the first rafa. So this is our rafa. So this is our mubtada, okay? And of course, what comes after it, remember ismul ishara, if the word that comes after it does not have an L, then we treat it as a khabar. If the word comes after it has an L, then we treat it as a badal, right? So that's an important thing to remember. So أعظم does not have L. It's not أولئك الأعظم. It's أولئك أعظم. So this is going to be our khabar. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? Now, أعظم, what kind of a word is أعظم? أكبر, أفضل, أصغر. This is an اسم تفضيل, right? And we learned that اسم تفضيل, sometimes they come with a tamyiz, something that quantifies it, something that clarifies it. Because if I say you are bigger, bigger in what? In size, in knowledge, in wealth, in children, like bigger in the sense of what? In terms of what? Right? So there's always that ambiguity when you use ism tafdil. So a tamyiz is that thing that comes to specify what I'm talking about. أعظم درجة, greater in rank, greater in terms of rank. So this is our tamyiz, right? And of course, tamyiz is one of those things that is always nasab. أولئك مبتدأ أعظم خبر, and then درجة would be our تمييز. من الذين أنفقوا. So من حرف جار, الذين هي اسم موصول, and it is the في محل جر because it is the اسم مجرور in this case. All right? So I'm just going to say, we know that اسم جار and مجرور, we normally call them متعلقان to something, even though it's correct, it's the proper way of saying it is حرف جار and اسم مجرور, and then you say after that you say متعلقان be something, and then again you have to realize what is it متعلق to. Now أعظم من الذين, when I'm comparing two things, always اسم تفضيل comes with حرف جار من. I'm comparing this to this. You are bigger than this. You know that element in English we have than, bigger than. In Arabic we have أعظم من, أكبر من, right? So this is going to be متعلقان بأعظم in that sense. And again, I insist on specifying what it is متعلق to as opposed to just saying متعلق بالخبر or متعلق بالفعل, because we are now a bit mature, like I said, right? When we were starting out, it's fine to just classify it as that. But now that you understand, okay, a jar majroor could be متعلق to just about anything, right? It could be متعلق to anything. So it's important to classify and to state what exactly is it متعلق to? What exactly is it connecting back to? And in this case, of course, it's going back to the comparison here. أعظم من. So you can even just ignore the daraja and you look at it as greater than what? أعظم من الذين. Okay, then you can see how the sentence is coming together. الذين, of course, like we said, it is اسم موصول, and of course in this case it's في محل جر because it is the اسم مجرور of من, and then whatever comes after it is the صلة الموصول لا محل لها من الإعراب, right? But when you go into that صلة الموصول, you look at it, then you realize it's a جملة فعلية. أنفقوا فعل ماضي, أنفق ينفق إنفاق, so أنفق هما أنفقا هم أنفقوا. So this is going to be our فعل ماضي. And of course, the fa'il is the inside pronoun hum, or rather the waw here, waw al-jama'a, correctly. Because I know we learned a different system and I'm trying to use both the correct, the standardized version and also the way we learned in Baina. So the fa'il is the inside pronoun hum, or more correctly, is the waw al-jama'a, right? There. من بعد وقتلوا أنفقوا من بعد. So this min is حرف جار, بعد is اسم مجرور. But then again we realize something. بعد is not taking a kasra. So what's happening here? And we noticed we remember from back when we talked about this, special mudafs like بعد, قبل, these kinds of mudafs, they do not take a kasra if they don't have a mudaf ilay. They behave like brats. They become stubborn and they're like, I want a dhamma. If you're not going to give me a mudaf ilay, at least give me a dhamma, right? So they act out and throw tantrums and insist on having a dhamma. So that's what's happening here. So if you see from before, min qabli al-fathi. Qabli al-fathi. Qabli here has a mudaf ilay. So it's happy taking on a kasra because it has a mudaf ilay. But here, ba'du did not get a mudaf ilayh. So ba'du is like, because you didn't give me a mudaf ilayh, I'm mad at you and I'm going to dhamma myself. I'm going to be angry with a dhamma, right? So that's kind of like what's happening there. So jar majroor متعلق to what? Again, we have to ask ourselves, if you see a jar majroor, what is it متعلق to? And you realize that أنفقوا من بعد goes back to أنفقوا. Here, there's no complication that you can say it goes back somewhere else. No, it's just directly attached to the verb أنفقوا. So من بعد would be متعلقان بأنفقوا. Then you have واو حرف عطف, and then قاتلوا. Like I keep on saying, when you have حرف عطف and معطوف, you just have to look at what you're connecting to. You cannot connect verbs to isms. You only connect isms to isms and verbs to verbs, even though there are exceptions. Like I keep saying, every rule of Arabic grammar has exceptions. So just know that it's going to work 99% of the time, but there's always that exception. So you always connect a verb to a verb and an ism to an ism with exceptions in mind. All right. So we look at what came before and we see أنفقوا is a verb. قاتلوا is a verb. So obviously قاتلوا is معطوف to أنفقوا. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Again, the grammar here is not very, very difficult, but if you have questions, please feel free, because I know with time, we tend to forget. I tend to forget most of these things if I don't go back and revise and try and study myself. So قاتلوا, this would be معطوف. Because of space, I didn't get to write اسم مجرور here, جار and مجرور متعلقان, but just keep that in mind. It's not missing, and just because of space. وقاتلوا, this is going to be معطوف, اسم معطوف. Any questions so far? Are we good? Okay. Right. Then we have وَكُلًّا وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الْحُسْنَى. Now, here's the thing. Remember, a long time ago we said the what is it called? The حالة الافتراضية, I'm forgetting the English word for it. سبحان الملك القدوس. The expected state of an ism in Arabic is supposed to be rafa. That is what we expected it to be. I'm forgetting the word for افتراضية. Subhanallah. Anyway, but the expected state of an ism is supposed to be in rafa state. That's what we expect it to be. So when we see something that is nasab, when we see something that is majroor, mansoob or majroor, we immediately have to ask ourselves, what is making it mansoob? What is making it majroor? There has to be a reason for it to be nasab. There has to be a reason for it to be in jar status. Okay? Rafa is what we expect. So when we see rafa, no problem. But when we see nasab and jar, we have to ask ourselves, what is happening? So here we see kullan. Something is making this kull nasab. It's supposed to be kullun. But no, here we're seeing kullan. So what is making it nasab? So we go ahead and read ahead to see, because there's nothing that came before it that makes it nasab, then we go ahead and read after to see if there's anything that could indicate that it is nasab. That's always the rule. You check what came before. If you can't find what came before, most of the time, the thing that is going to make it nasab or jar is going to come before it. If you don't find it, then you move ahead and see in the sentence, what else can make it nasab? Could it be something else perhaps? And then I see wa'ada. Wa'ada is a fi'al, right? It's a fi'al madi. Wa'ada ya'idu. So now, and then I read ahead and I see Allah lafdul jalala, it's in rafa status. So this is the fa'il of wa'ada. And al-husna is, well, you cannot see it, but it is mansoob, right? And that is the maf'ul bihi. Okay, so maybe I could just type this out and then we can come back and see what kullan is. So wa'ada, fi'al madi. Fa'iluhu, of course, it's an inside pronoun, like we learned before. So when there's an inside pronoun, we look ahead and see if there's an outside doer, and we see al-lafdul jalala. So we'll say al-lafdul jalala is the fa'il. And again, I remind you, I don't say Allah is fa'il. I say al-lafdul jalala is the fa'il, because if you say Allah is fa'il, then you're limiting Allah to a particular thing, which is not correct. Yeah, so you have to say al-lafdul jalala. Anyway, al-lafdul jalala is the fa'il here. And al-husna, like I said, مفعول به. Okay. Now, just let's understand the sentence. وعد الله الحسنى. Allah promised al-husna, the best. Allah promised the best. Can I say Allah promised them the best? Allah promised you the best? Allah promised me the best? Allah promised all of you? Allah promised both of them? So you realize that al-husna could be maf'ul bihi number 2. And that means that kullan, both of them, Allah promised both of them al-husna, the best. So kullan here is actually our maf'ul bihi number 1. And it is muqaddam, obviously. Because we know taqdeem happens when the order is changed, right? So here it was supposed to be, or maybe I could just say, to save one space there, I could just say MBE. Okay, وَكُلًّا وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الْحُسْنَى. So kullan is the maf'ul bihi number 1, it's muqaddam. And then al-husna is the maf'ul bihi number 2. Allah promised both of them al-husna, the best. Now, this brings me to a point where I can be able to discuss the concept of ishtighal. Long ago, we learned about the concept of ishtighal. Now, ishtighal is very similar to maf'ul bihi muqaddam, very similar. The only difference is that al-ishtighal has a pronoun that comes after it. وَالسَّمَاءَ رَفَعَهَا وَوَضَعَ الْمِيزَانَ. Right? وَالسَّمَاءَ رَفَعَهَا. So you have the ha going back to the sama. That tells you this is ishtighal, and therefore we are trying to bring this word, we're trying to create sort of like specialness to this word sama. But kullan, if there's no, like you see, it's not wa kullan wa'adahuma. There's no pronoun that goes back to kullan. Or what wa'adahu. Right? And each one of them, Allah promised, there's no pronoun that goes back to that. So this is not the concept of al-ishtighal. This is actually maf'ul bihi muqaddam. Right? Each of them, kullan, each of them. I keep saying both of them because they're two groups. So that, yeah. Kull has different meanings depending on how it is used. It means all, but here because there's only two groups that are being spoken about, that's why I keep saying both of them. Yeah, but actually kull means all of it, or all of them, or everyone in a sense. Yeah. So here kullan, each one of them, or both of them, or all of them, if you want. Because the idea, it goes back to the two groups that are being discussed. So if you look at the two groups, لا يستوي منكم من أنفق من قبل الفتح, that's the first group. من الذين أنفقوا من بعد وقاتلوا. This is the second group. So these are the two groups that are being spoken about, that both of these groups are going to be given, or all of them that are in these two groups will be given al-husna, will be rewarded al-husna. All right? I hope that's clear, the idea of what is it called? Al-ishtighal and maf'ul bihi muqaddam. Okay, and also, yeah, fantastic. Okay, so we can continue. Then we have wow. And then we look at this wow, it's followed by a jumla ismiya. Allahu bima ta'maluna khabir is a jumla ismiya. So definitely this wow is what we call wow haliya. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? And the lafdul jalala here, again, is the first rafa'. So this is going to be a mubtada, right? And then you have bima. Bi harf jar ma ism mawsul, right? So this is going to be muta'alliq to something. So jar majroor, muta'alliqani. And then we look ahead and see what else can it be muta'alliq to? Because we look ahead and we see another mubtada here. This is al-khabar. Then this muta'alliq is going to be muta'alliqani bil-khabar muqaddam, which the khabar is actually khabir. Isn't that cool? So متعلقان بخبير مقدم. So this is also مقدم. So again, why do I insist on mentioning this muqaddam business? Because it tells you that the structure changed, and therefore there has to be a different kind of meaning that is being explained here. So بما متعلقان بالخبر مقدم or متعلقان بخبير مقدم. And then ما اسم موصول, like we said, تعملون is صلة الموصول لا محل لها من الإعراب. But inside تعملون is a complete sentence, the جملة فعلية made up of a مضارع, right? فعل مضارع, and the فاعل is أنتم تعلمون. So the واو الجماعة there, again أنتم, or in this case, anyway, let's not go into the details of that. As long as we understand that it's أنتم بما تعملون, the فاعل is أنتم. And like we said, the khabar here, so this is one structure, متعلقان, because you can see the connection. B حرف جار, ما اسم موصول, ما is connected to تعلمون, so that's still one bracket. And then خبير, there's no connection, so this is our khabar of the mubtada. And of course it's مؤخر, you can write مؤخر or you can just leave it, it's understood, you know. All right, let's see if we can be able to finish ayah number 11. That would be a good target if we can be able to do that. But I don't know if you can, because this ayah, this next part, is a bit loaded grammatically. So you have man. Now this man can be two things, can be two kinds of man, okay? The most obvious one is that it could be ma istifhamiyya. Man, that is a question, right? Man, who? Like for example, if I say, who's at the door? Man fil bab, right? Who is at the door? Or it can be man shartiya, yeah? Whoever does this, then this. So it becomes like a conditional sentence. So it's either a question, this ayah, man ذا الذي يقرض all the way to the end, or maybe we can say فيضاعفه له up to here. This could either be a question or it could be a condition. Okay? So maybe I should explain that in English before we go into the Arabic so that you can understand what I'm saying. So either it could be, who is it? I'm going to skip the is it part, the middle part. I'm just going to simplify it so that you see what I'm saying. Who will lend? So that, or yeah, sababiyya. Who will lend Allah? As a simple question, who will lend Allah? Or whoever lends Allah, then something, 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 full stop. So this is kind of what is happening in this particular situation. So already, just from this man, there are already two possibilities. Just from the man. You can already start to appreciate why grammar is important and how the Quran is very rich, right? So of course, we expect two different possibilities of meanings, right, to be derived from that man. Now, as far as this man, if it's man istifhamiyya, then there's different ways of looking at it. So you can just look at it as, okay, it's the first, rafa. So this is going to be our mubtada. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Oh, let's change to Arabic. Mubtada. That's the first possibility. So now that this is our mubtada, that means then whatever comes after it, the الذي يقرض الله قرضا حسنا, this part would be our khabar في محل رفع, right? That's one way of looking at it. And if you look at it this way, then that means this da is going to be your khabar, and this الذي either would be a badal, or would be a sifa, right? So either it's a badal or a sifa, if you look at it that way. So this da is, we would say ismul ishara, khabar, or ismul ishara, yeah, khabar, and then alladhi, it's either replacing that. So you can either say this da is zaida, and therefore this alladhi is the badal of that. In that case, you can just simply say man alladhi. You don't have to say man alladhi. You can say man alladhi. So you can, in that sense, then this alladhi is a badal. But if you say, no, this da is not zaida, then you look at it as a sifa. So you say, man da alladhi. So alladhi is describing this person. Who is it there? Or is there anyone there at all that would do this and this? Is there anyone there? And Ibn Ashur mentions a very interesting point here. He says that this da is mu'tarida. It's coming in between the sentence, right? And it means that it implies or represents a person who is close by. So in other words, is there anyone there among you at all? Is there anyone among you? So that's one way of looking at this da. Is there anyone close by? Is there anyone here? So that's how one way of understanding this da, because it means somebody who is close by. The other way that the grammarians have described this da is that they've said this da is zaida, and therefore it just only adds tawkid. So therefore, is there anyone at all that would do this? So two meanings. Is there anyone there? Is there anyone among you? Is there anyone close by? And is there anyone at all? So you understand the meaning? So one is tawkid, and one is like to show closeness, to show that if somebody is close by or among you. So that's how you understand this there. Okay. And then, like I've said, alladhi can either be understood in two ways. You can either look at it as a badal, so you can totally replace that and you say mani alladhi, or you can look at it as a safa. So alladhi is describing the one who is there. Is there anyone there who can do this, who can lend Allah? Is there anyone at all that can do this? So you understand that that comes as a sifa. So that here would be the khabar. That's one way of looking at it. And like we said, alladhi can either be the badal, depending on how, and both apply actually. So both are possible, therefore both apply, right? And then you have يقرض الله قرضا حسنا. Of course, this part is a silatul mawsul, لا محل له من الإعراب. But of course, inside that silatul mawsul is a جملة فعلية. يقرض is مضارع. And then Allah لفظ الجلالة, you can see it is nasab. يقرض من? Who will lend who? You will lend Allah. So لفظ الجلالة here will be the مفعول به. I'm gonna shorten that. And then قرضا. قرضا, you see يقرض قرضا. It's kind of same. أقرض يقرض, but this is قرضا. So what does that tell you? It means it's similar. It's a kind of maf'ul. So here, remember when we talked about na'ibu maf'ul mutlaq, and we said you can have, basically it was supposed to be يقرض الله إقراضا. أقرض يقرض إقراض, right? The masdar, the maf'ul mutlaq would be إقراض. But قرضا is اسم masdar. So it's replacing that إقراض, the maf'ul mutlaq. And therefore we will call this na'ibu maf'ul. Again, I'm not going to type the whole thing because of space. مطلق. Right? نائب مفعول مطلق. And حسنا, of course, is a sifa. قرضا حسنا. موصوف sifa for properties match. All right. That's one way of looking at this sentence. We haven't looked at the other possible way. The other possible way is that to assume that this man is not the mubtada, but the khabar. All right. So you look at this whole sentence and say, ذا الذي يقرض الله قرضا من? Like you put it at the end and it becomes now the khabar. So that would essentially be the mubtada and then the man would be the khabar. Why is it considered that way? Because asma'ul istifham, question words or question nouns, always come at the beginning. Whether it's a mubtada, whether it's a khabar, whether it's a maf'ul bihi, whether it's whatever it is, it always comes at the beginning. So sometimes it could come at the beginning, but it's a khabar. It could come at the beginning, but it's a maf'ul bihi, right? That's what, it could come at the beginning, but it's a fa'il or something else, right? So sometimes, or a hal, if I say كيف حالك, for example, I don't say حالك كيف, I say كيف حالك, but كيف here is a khabar, it's not the mubtada. حالك كيف. That's how it's supposed to be. So you see, Sometimes that can happen. But to me, I don't think it makes a very big difference, because whether you put the man at the end, ذا الذي يقرض الله قرضا حسنا who. For example, if I say the one who came is who, or who is the one who came, it's the same meaning, isn't it? Like whether you put this at the end or you rearrange, it's a bit weird, but the meaning is, the understanding is still the same. That's how you can look at this sentence. The other thing is that some grammarians have said that this the actually comes with man. Just like you say ماذا, the comes with the ma, so it's kind of like together. So they looked at man the together as one thing. I don't really think that that's, yani, I mean, if Allah wanted to say, to use that together, he could have just used it together. There are other places where Allah says mani ladhi, but here Allah added man da. So this da has a purpose. You cannot just bunch it up together. And I mean, I don't know. I'm not a grammarian myself, so yani, don't and I don't mean to be, rude or anything to those who know better than me. But I'm just saying that I believe that every single word in the Quran has a purpose and has a role and has, especially in the particular ayah. So to me, this is the that plays a role. And I've tried to explain to you two kinds of ways you can look at this there. Either it's tawkid, adding emphasis, or it's showing anybody near or among you, something like that. Any questions so far? Are we good? So that's the first part, right? Then you come to this fa. Okay, now this fa is also an interesting fa. It's not just fa harf atf or fa isti'nafiyya, or this is actually fa as-sababiyya. I'm going to explain to you what that is and maybe refresh a little bit about fa as-sababiyya. So fa as-sababiyya is what we call the causal fa. The fa that, B is as a result of A. Something happened because of something that came before. Yeah? Or A caused B. So you have two situations. You have two things. The thing that came before and the thing that came after. The thing that came after is as a result of the thing that came before. Sort of like a condition in a way. Like A impacts B. So A causes B to happen. B is brought about because of A. That's how you understand sababiyya in a sense. And this fa implies that, signifies the reason for something else. So B is the reason for A in a sense. All right. So that's how you simply understand fa as-sababiyya. And what does it do? Fa as-sababiyya, when it comes with a mudari', you assume that there's an an here. An mudmara. So there's an implied an. So فَأَنْ يُضَاعِفَهُ. And we know an makes مضارع منصوب, right? So فَأَنْ يُضَاعِفَهُ. So it's implied, it's understood that there's a hidden implied an at the background. So that's why يُضَاعِفَهُ has a fatha on it. Otherwise it'd be فَيُضَاعِفُهُ to be a dhamma, like I mentioned. In Arabic, the expected, I'm using expected, but that's not the word I'm looking for. The expected state is rafa, whether it's a verb or whether it's a noun. It has to be rafa. That's what we expect. When it's nasab, when it's jar, it has to be a reason. Of course, with verbs, we don't have jar, we have jazm, right? With verbs, we have jazm. With nouns, we have jar. So there always has to be a reason for those two other things. But rafa, that's the state. Can we say this is the jawab? Exactly, Archie, exactly. So that's one possibility. So if we say man is shartiya, I told you man can be two things. Can either be istifhamiya or it could be shartiya. So if it is istifhamiya, like I keep saying, then this would be fa as-sababiyya, right? That would be fa as-sababiyya. And that will explain why the yuda'ifahu has a fatha on it. But this man, if it is shartiya, then we now have a condition. So we have fi'al shart, and then we have a jawab shart. We have two parts, condition and then the jawab. So that's why Arshi is saying that could this fa be fa al-aqiba or fa al-jaza. So we can call this fa al-jaza, right? because this fa is the fa of conditional sentences. الرابطة, فاء الرابطة أو الفاء الجزاء. So that is also a possibility. Depending on how you understand this man, then you will understand this fa. All right? I hope that's clear. Okay. Then you have يضاعفه, like we said, it is mansub. It has a fatha on it because of an implied an, and because this is sababiyya and whatnot. However, I should mention there are a couple of qira'at that read this as يضاعفه with the dhamma and not with the fatha. So that's also a possibility. If you look at it that way, then this could either be jawab or it could be ataf. This fa could be harf ataf. So it could go back to yuqridu. I know this is a very complicated part to end on, but I hope you're with me and I haven't lost you. Anyway, let's finish off this ayah. يضاعفه فعل مضارع. Of course, the fa'il is huwa because ضاعف يضاعف, family 3 جاهد, and we'll look at this when we do the sarf. And the fa'il is huwa, and then there's the attached pronoun who, which is of course the maf'ul bihi, right? This attached pronoun, يضاعفه, and the who of course goes back to the qard. Yeah, يضاعفه, this qard. Allah wants to multiply فيضاعفه, so that he can multiply this qardan hasana, and of course the jaza of it, the reward for it. Not the qard itself, but the reward for that qard, in a sense, the equivalent of that qard. Yeah, that's what grammarians have talked about this who here. And then you have lahu, lam harf jar, who is ism majroor, because you know every time you have a harf jar attached, a pronoun attached to a harf jar, then it's going to be ism majroor, a constant like that. And of course, it's not lihu, and I know this, probably know this, but I'm just mentioning it for remembrance sake, because we know harf jar is li, yeah? It's not la. But only when it comes with pronoun, you have la, lakum, lahu, laha, and so on and so forth, right? So obviously this is going to be متعلق to يضاعفه له. متعلق جار مجرور متعلقان بيضاعفه. واو حرف عطف. Sorry, no, actually this wow is wow حالية. How? Because when we look at this, what comes again after it? What do we see? We see a جملة اسمية. Wow followed by a جملة اسمية. What do we have? We have wow حالية, right? And of course له, again, this is متعلقان بالخبر مقدم. And that makes أجر my مبتدا مؤخر. I'm just going to type مؤخر. And then كريم would be the خبر. So you can see here the متعلق came all the way before the أجر, and that's why أجر is nakira. We know that jar majroor, when it comes before the mubtada, then the mubtada has to be nakira. Or not has to be, but that's the normal. Like if I say li qalamun, I have a pen. Lahu baytun, he has a house. In essence, it's supposed to be baytun lahu. A house is for him, which is a weird way of saying it. But if I said he has a house, then it makes more sense, right? So that's the same thing in Arabic. Lahu ajrun, he has an ajr. Yeah. Okay. Can they be described as mawsuf sifa? Ajrun Kareem. Wait, what did I do? Oh my, yes, this is sifa, it's not a khabar. Sorry. Ajrun Kareem sifa, not khabar. Sorry. Thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah, I think because it's time and I think I've been talking for 1 whole hour. Yeah, I'm losing a little bit of focus. Thank you for that. Yes. Ajrun Kareemun mawsuf sifa. Yeah. Yeah, and I think a good point to stop. Thank you for that clarification on that point. So inshallah, next time we will manage to finish this section. SubhanAllah, it's taking us too long. But hopefully next time we will do ayah number 12 and we will do the sarf of this as well. And we can go in to the next ayat. But of course, next Sunday, we will continue with our explanation. And then the Sunday after that, inshallah, then we will go back to Nahw and Sarf. Okay. Any other questions or clarifications or anything else before we end? But otherwise, I think that's a good point to stop. Alhamdulillah. آمين يا رب العالمين وإياكم جزاكم الله خيرا. Ameen Ya Rabb. Ameen. Thank you all for your du'as, and I wish for you the same and so much more. May Allah open the understanding of His book and His words to us so that we can appreciate His last message to us. And may He choose us from the people of the Quran. Ameen Ya Rabb al-Alameen. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I will see you guys next Sunday for the explanation.